This is Financially Fit Radio with Cory Sickles from Safe Harbor Retirement Group. When a part of your financial strategy is out of tune, your long-term goals, your retirement savings, and your legacy can all suffer. With many years of experience in the financial industry, Cory provides his clients and prospects with the information they need regarding Social Security, retirement income planning, wealth management, and much more. Listen in as we address your financial concerns and provide helpful solutions to put you on the path to achieving your retirement goals. And now, here is Financially Fit Radio with Cory Sickles.
Welcome back to another episode of Financially Fit Radio. I'm Cory Sickles with Safe Harbor Retirement Group and Wealth Advisors. If you'd like any information about anything that Tony and I discussed today, just feel free to give us a call at 614-760-0670, or you can always visit us online at safeharboroh.com. And while you're on our website, feel free to click on our radio page. You can listen to previous shows, as well as subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, or Spotify. Also, feel free to check out today's show on our YouTube channel. Just type in Safe Harbor Retirement Group. You can watch our YouTube channel. You could also subscribe. And we do put out about 3 or 4, or maybe sometimes even 5 video shorts a week about different types of financial topics. So you can kind of be educated as you kind of learn about finances. Also, feel free to schedule a complimentary, no obligation meeting with us. Again, there's no financial obligation. All meetings are complimentary. So again, you can give us a call at 614-760-0670 or visit our website at safeharboroh.com. Well, today, what I really want to talk about is how should couples really plan for retirement? You know, you might have a situation where both of you are involved, but there might be a situation where only one of you is involved in financial or, preparing for retirement. So we'll talk about some ideas that maybe you can get both of you involved, to make sure that you have the retirement that you want. But before we dive into that, let me introduce to you my co-host this week and every week, and that's Tony Shore. Tony, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Cory. Doing really good. And it sounds like a great show. Maybe I'll have to listen together with my wife to this show. This is a good one for couples, right?
It should be.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Cory, it's a great time of year, the silly season. We're in it. And are you done yet with all your Christmas shopping?
Christmas shopping, we don't do it. We don't do a whole lot anymore. So I'm going to probably say about 90% done.
Sure.
I guess there's a couple weeks left here. How about you?
Yeah, Melissa probably does it all, right?
Well, anymore it's like gift cards. So
yeah. We do less and less each year too. It seems, and that's not what it's all about. It's about family and gratitude.
Yep.
And that type of thing, and really helping others. I mean, being there for people is probably the best gift you can give, right?
It is. I mean, that is. I mean, we're having our we're having our big carol sing, family carol sing. We have 40 people over at our house.
That's right. Yeah, so, that'll be fun. You mentioned that last week. That's exciting. I'm not ready to answer your question. I'm not ready for Christmas. I never am. It just seems like I never am.
It's amazing how it just pops up.
Yeah, well, especially this year because again, Thanksgiving was so late. So people are scrambling. But remember, in all the rushing about, don't get stressed. Just relax. Be there for people. Do what you can for others. I think that's the message of the season, and that's a good one. And it's not all about the gifts, the giving and the getting. It's also about just being there for your family. And I know you like to be there for the community too, hence the toy drive. I really respect you, Cory, for doing that. And the family sing-along. I mean, what a great tradition. So that's awesome. Now, the show today, you said planning for couples, steps to build your future together. I'm interested in where you're going to go with this one. So what would be the first thing you want to touch on as far as steps to build a future together for couples?
I think as we kind of talk about the show, Tony, there's a couple things. One time, when a lot of people come in and they meet with us, there might only be one of the spouses that are like really into it. I'm not gonna always want to say it's the male. I mean, it could be the male or the female. And what
Yeah.
I really mean by into it is they're the ones that actually are saving. They're usually bringing the other person along to say, "Hey, we need to start figuring out on what we're going to end up doing." Right. And then you do have sometimes where you have a couple when they do come in, they don't even want to be involved too much at all. Well,
Yeah.
he or she'll do all that. I'm just kind of along for the ride. And the one thing that I find out more and more too, Tony, is a lot of couples actually have their own bank accounts, pay their own expenses, which
Hmm.
means I don't know if I don't do that in my household,
Yeah,
but
we don't do that
I
either.
think when you're starting to deal with blended families and things like that, a lot of times finances are actually kind of split,
Huh.
and the
Yeah.
budget everyone had they might have a budget, but each person has their own budget. Maybe I got to pay half of the bills, which means um, both of you really now at that point have to save, if you know what I mean, because
Yeah. True.
if you don't have anything to pay the bills because you didn't save and the only thing you have is Social Security, then you put a big strain, right, on that other spouse because you're
Right.
going, my God, what do you can't retire. You
Yeah.
don't have any money to retire, right?
Right.
So I think the very first thing, let's just kind of just start at the very beginning of this, is both of you really need to have open communication on what is your vision for retirement, right? I mean, you really
Right.
need to understand that. And I'm
Wait,
just gonna
my wife and I have to have open communication? Oh,
Yeah.
no.
Yes. Well,
It is important.
yes. We at least got to listen, Tony, right?
Yeah. Yes, that's important. That's the most important part of a relationship is listening.
Right.
Yes.
But you do need to really have open communication because I don't think a lot of people really talk about, you know, how do I really envision retirement? Do both of you want to travel? Do you want to do other things? Do you want to work part time? But I really think both of you really need to know, what is the expectation of how you guys do want to enjoy retirement?
Right.
Do you want to do other hobbies? Do you want to act, golf, whatever you want to be able to do? You need to be able to kind of talk about that because at the end of the day, when you start developing your vision, that's going to tell you what type of budget that you're going to need.
Hmm.
And the budget is really what matters. I
Well,
hate
right.
I hate
Yeah.
to hate I know a lot of people don't like, the B word, but when you retire, the paychecks have stopped. It's kind of like, I got Social Security, maybe you got a pension, but you need to pay all your bills. And if you want to travel, that's just another bill that you got to be able to make sure that you can actually afford.
Yeah, if you don't have a spending plan and an income plan, an ingoing and outgoing plan, especially in retirement,
Yep.
you need one in life in general to really be successful, but especially in retirement, because again, you don't have a paycheck that you can fall back on. You've got to know how much you can spend. You've got a bulk amount of money, and it's well, how much can I take out each month and not run out of money, right?
That's exactly right. I mean, at the end of the day, that is the goal, is to not to run out of money. And the
Right, and
question
both
is,
spouses need to be on the same page in order to make that
right.
happen.
And who knows? I mean, whether it's 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years that you have in retirement, you don't know when that day is going to come.
Right.
And you just need to be able to, prepare for that. We kind of talked about that. And the other part that you kind of need to make this about is you guys are a team. So you need to make a team effort, right? Um, so think about some of the things that you could say when you actually talk to a spouse, right? You don't want to go in and say, "Hey, honey, we need to talk about the money situation right now." You might want to talk about, "Hey, I think we need to sit down and maybe, plan for our future or whatever you want to do." Make it more about both of you rather than some type of, hey, we just need to talk about money. That does not sound like a good situation.
No,
Well,
no.
hell, I mean, do we have money? Do we not have money?
Yeah.
What's kind of going on there?
Yeah, people usually put it off or afraid to sit down with their spouse or significant other or family and discuss money. I think most people would rather, they'd rather schedule a root canal. They'll do anything to
Right.
avoid talking about money and budgets and things like that.
Yeah, and if you really feel like that maybe both of you really aren't involved into it, then maybe one of the things that you really want to do is say, hey, hey, I want to make sure that we're going to have the retirement that we want.
Right.
I'm going to go out and I'm going to find a financial advisor. We're going to go in and talk to him just to kind of see, or her, just to kind of see where we stand today. Right.
Right.
What do we have to do to make sure that we can maybe meet our retirement goals? So there might be a little bit of homework that you have to do for that first or second meeting to kind of determine some of this. But it's a lot I mean, you can go online and do online calculators and all that type stuff. But my guess would be is if you're not into the finances, you don't want to do any of that. You'd rather just kind of go in and give someone, here's all my stuff. Here's what we're doing. Can I retire in 20 years or 10 years or 5 years or whatever your number you're actually trying to target at? Right. And that's what an advisor is going to do for you. And they're going to tell you, you know what, you can't retire at 62 based upon the income you need, based upon the money you have. Or they might sit there and say, you know what, you can retire at 62 because you've done all the right things up to this point. The most difficult thing is to be able to turn your money into an income stream and to be able to make sure that you keep up with inflation, be able to keep up with emergencies that pop up here and there.
Yeah.
Right. And to be able to make sure that you never run out of money.
Yeah, that's the key. And a lot of people don't know how to do that. That's why you're here. And that's why people need to work with a trusted financial services professional like yourself, Cory, because creating that income from a lump sum, everybody's really great. We get used to the accumulation phase during our working years. We're used to taking our income and turning it into a savings. Now we have to do the opposite. We have to take the savings and turn it into an income. And that's where the problems and costly mistakes happen, right?
They do. And I think if you would talk to probably most of my clients, right, the thing that they like to focus on are the goals or achievements or what they want to do in retirement. They don't want to worry about how do I invest my money? How much money should I take out? They don't want to worry about any of the financial part. They want to, you're going to be able to enjoy retirement a lot more if you have someone that you trust that's going to handle to make sure that you have money to do the things that you want.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's really the goal. So you really need to leverage that professional help or that professional advisor to use their expertise in order to help you enjoy what you want, and that is retirement.
Right. And make sure that, you and your spouse, when you talk about, you mentioned goals, you need to focus on your goals and then leverage that professional help to reach them, but not just your individual goals. You need to openly communicate, like you said earlier, about your spouse's goals and your own and see if they mix together or if you can achieve each one, both of them. You have the means to do it. So it is important for retirement. One person might envision buying an RV and traveling. The other might want to, just stay home and golf. So you've got to compromise and communicate. But one way you're going to easily deal with this is working with a financial professional so you don't have to get stressed about the financial aspect of it.
Yeah, there's so many things that I don't think, individuals think about. But when you actually sit down in an advisor and we start asking you questions that you probably have not thought about, it's going to make you think. But more importantly, it's going to make you guys communicate on really what you guys want to try to be able to accomplish.
Sure.
And you guys might have differences, just like you were just talking about earlier. One spouse might want to travel and the other one hates to travel.
Right.
But you got to figure out what the compromise is on that.
Sure.
Maybe you don't travel, but your spouse travels with a friend, whatever that might end up being. But you guys really need to kind of respect what those differences could be, right? because it's all about enjoying retirement, and what you enjoy might be completely different than your spouse.
True.
And I think, the interesting part is if you go back and look at 2020 and COVID, I mean, divorce rate was high, Tony.
Yeah.
And the reason why is all of a sudden you guys,
Everybody's together.
it was kind of like you were retired.
Yes, it was like
You
retirement.
woke up, they were there. You worked, they're there. And you couldn't go anywhere.
Right.
So, I mean, it's kind of like you're in retirement, and there were a lot of divorces because they couldn't deal with that type of situation.
Right.
Now,
And
there could have been money. Now, there could have been money problems involved with all that,
sure.
which causes anytime you get money involved, that causes stress in general.
Sure, that's
anyway.
part of it, but you're right. I think for a lot of people, you've heard from people you've worked with, they retire and then it's too much to get. They say you need to get out and get a hobby. Especially if one of them is used to being at home a lot,
Yes,
and the other went off to an office. Whether it's the husband or wife or which spouse it was, the one that was at home a lot, all of a sudden the other spouse is there, getting into their routines. That can cause consternation. And it's funny because, and I've probably brought this up before, but I love this analogy because it's true. At my mom and dad's 50th wedding anniversary, Cory, they asked my mom, they said my mom and dad were standing there, everybody's clapping, and somebody goes, well, how do you guys have been married so long and made it work, how did you make the marriage last this long? And my mom just said, he was gone a lot.
Right.
He was, and she didn't even hesitate. How did you make it work for 50 years? He was gone a lot, just instantly. And then, of course, my dad had to respond with 50 years of marriage, 10 years of marital bliss. So they like to poke each other, but there's truth in it. My dad was an over-the-road truck driver. Sometimes he'd be gone 2-3 weeks at a time, right?
Sure.
If he had a haul out to California or something. He was a furniture moved people, like when they moved houses. So he would move people all over the country, and he would be gone a lot at a time. And then he might be home for 2 or 3 weeks, but then he'd be gone for 2 weeks. So absence does make the heart grow fonder sometimes. So you have to have a plan. And some people are easier. They adjust to it easier than others. I think, my wife and I have been married 30 years and we did pretty good during COVID. We've both said, though, we'd never want to work together, like at the same job or closely.
Yeah.
Some people do that well. I mean, I know you and your wife work well together.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people their wives work together. Our friend Jeff Foley, he works with his wife.
Yeah.
Or sometimes he works for her, I think is more the case. But
that's usually the case anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. But you're right. I just wanted to say that because my mom said he was gone a lot. That was her response to how did you make the marriage last 50 years?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but yeah, I mean, you're right about that in some cases, right? Another thing that I think that what I see a lot of, a lot of times it's one spouse saves a lot, the other one maybe doesn't save as much.
Yeah.
And really, what you need to do is you really need to have some type of communication with them.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't. Again, you don't have to go in and say, "Hey, listen, we need to talk about your money situation." It's kind of like, "Hey, you need to kind of start saving in order to make sure we have the retirement that we want to." Right.
Yeah. Or say, hey, let's talk about our future. We need to save more.
Right. You know what? And you can also make it a little bit fun too, right? You don't have to sit there and say, hey, we're going to sit down at the dinner table and we're going to talk finances tonight.
Right.
Say, hey, let's go out, have a couple drinks, maybe have an appetizer, and let's kind of just talk about our retirement.
Yeah.
So
sounds good.
Change the venue. Just don't always have to do it in your house. And it won't be as stressful. And you can you'd be a little bit more relaxed. Probably if you have a drink or two, maybe too relaxed. But I
recommend that they go to that wings place you took me. What's
the Roosters?
Oh yeah, Roosters. That was great.
Yeah. When you were in town, we took you to Roosters.
Yeah, the best wings I've ever had.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's popular. It's a popular joint, right?
Yeah, it is.
And part of it might be one reason why I think a lot of spouses, I see this too, right? both spouses might save, but only one wants to be involved with maybe the retirement planning. So one of the reasons why is I just don't feel like that other spouse maybe feels like they're educated enough to be able to discuss that. So, obviously one of the things that we try to do here at Safe Harbor, is we try to be able to educate our clients on whatever topics that we're going to end up talking about, right? Because I want you to understand certain things on how you're invested, or why this product's important for you, or whatever else. So you might have to actually, poke them in the right direction to become educated on certain type of topics as well.
Yeah.
Just like anything else, right? Once you become educated a little bit, you feel a lot more comfortable doing things.
Right.
In some cases, it's a little bit different if you're, what I was going to use is social media. I mean, everyone's an expert on whatever topic they're talking about there.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Everybody's an expert, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But they're not, but no one's an expert. A lot of people aren't experts when they start talking to your face.
Well, oh yeah, that's when it changes. But
Right.
but that's why, Cory, I know in your office you encourage people when they meet with
Can I
you,
refill your
if
eggnog
they
for
have
you?
a space, if they have a spouse, I should say.
Yeah.
What they do is you want them both there for the meeting. So if you're working with a financial professional, which you all should be, all our listeners should be, and if they're not, they should give you a call, but they should do it together. Even if one spouse doesn't want anything to do with the finances, you want to make sure they're both on the same page, and you do a good job of it, laying it out in simple layman's terms so they, everyone understands, right?
Yeah, normally when that situation happens, when they go, "Oh, I don't think my spouse is going to be here for that," I usually still try to schedule them to come into that, because when you start talking about retirement planning, it's for both of you.
Right.
The other spouse they need to know what kind of I mean, they might not have. I mean, at the end of the day, they need to know what kind of income and how long it's going to last.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you do.
Right.
You kind of have to be somewhat educated, just for the fact that, I mean, if you don't know what you can spend per month, then obviously you can spend as much as you want.
Right.
Right? So that other spouse has to be kind of reined in a little bit in order to make sure they understand the consequences if they don't actually stay on budget.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the most important part, right?
Right.
So the other thing, obviously before we wrap up here, Tony, a couple of things, right? So you really need to set goals, right?
Yes.
So you need to set goals. I need to save this much by this time, or whatever those goals are. I want to retire at age 65. And then if you're working with, leverage that advisor to make sure that you're going to be on track to meet those goals, whatever you're trying to able to accomplish. Automate as much as you can by saving, right? Have that come out of your paycheck. Have that come out of your bank account. You don't even see it. So automate the savings, because it makes it a lot easier to get to what your target goal is if you never see it into your bank account. That's so important to be able to do that, right?
Yeah,
and
set clear, specific goals. Right?
Exactly right. And be patient. This is a process. You don't come in and find out that, you don't come in and find out you can't retire at 65 unless you change XYZ. Well, you got to change XYZ, but it still might take you 5, 10, 15 years to be able to see where that actually goes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
So
and
be
especially with
patient.
money and the markets and
Right.
investments and things, you have to have patience. You can't let emotions dictate or want it to all happen so soon. You need to have it planned out over the period of time that you have.
And you're right. And I mean, how fast does a year go?
Like that. Yeah.
Correct. And then the last thing I'll say is, if you're working with an advisor, you're saving, then the next thing we're going to do with you is we're going to have annual checkups.
Yep.
Right? We're going to sit down and say, hey, you're doing great. You're right on track. Or you know what? You're not on track. We need to maybe adjust it for whatever reason might happen. Maybe it's because of the market or whatever that might end up being. Maybe you lost a job. You had to take money out of your savings. There's all kind of reasons that can put you off track. But if you're actually meeting with an advisor on an annual basis, we're going to do that checkup to make sure and try to keep you on track to have the retirement that you want.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great, Corey. And we're almost out of time. So let our listeners out there know before we go how they can get a hold of you to set up that complimentary, no charge, no obligation consultation.
Yeah, so just give us a call at 614-760-0670, or you can always visit us online at safeharboroh.com. Just remember, all meetings are complimentary. There's no financial obligation. You can meet with us via phone call, via Zoom if you want to do a Zoom, or we have 2 locations here in the Columbus area, one in Easton and one in Dublin. Again, we're just here to help and guide you to make sure you have the best retirement that you want. So schedule that complimentary meeting with us.
All right. Sounds good. Well, Corey, great show today. A fantastic topic. And listeners, that does it for today's episode of Financially Fit Radio with our host, Cory Sickles. Thank you for listening to Financially Fit Radio. Don't pay too much for taxes or retire without a sound income plan. For more information, contact Cory Sickles at Safe Harbor Retirement Group. Call 614-760-0670 or visit their website at financiallyfitoh.com.
All matters discussed during the show are for informational purposes only. Each individual situation may vary, and the opinions expressed here may not apply to everyone. Materials presented are believed to be from reliable sources, and no representations can be made as to its accuracy. All ideas and information should be discussed in detail with one of our qualified representatives prior to implementation. We are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration, the Federal Medicare Program, or any other government agency. Calling this number will direct you to a licensed sales agent.